Hey y'all, welcome to Cocktail Hour. This is your midweek mini episode. I am Meg.
And I'm Nikki. In today's episode, we are covering this is a red flag.
Meg wrote this clearly. Think. Sorry.
Okay, in today's episode, we are covering what people think is a red flag when booking vendors. So let's see if we agree.
Agreed. Shout out to at Sarah Mariah Bridal for the thread on this. I'm scouring threads. I don't actually use threads.
Me neither.
I'm just a stalker trying to see because people are really having it out on threads.
I was just going to say right before this episode started, Meg mentioned threads and how these came from threads. And I was telling her about how there was a photographer and this big drama. It was her first ever thread. And she was like basically coming for photographers' throats. She's a photographer herself, coming for the throats of other photographers for not delivering galleries within 2 weeks. She said, I don't understand how it takes anything over like 3 weeks basically for you to deliver a gallery, especially if you don't have kids and X, Y, and Z. And she was bragging about how she had 2 weddings in one weekend and she was delivering them both at the end of the week.
Number one, tell me that you don't actually work as much as, some of us do without telling me. Also, tell me that your photographs aren't as polished. I don't want to like be a complete cunt.
But somebody called her out and said the same thing. Like one of the responses was like, I just looked up your work and it's giving not.
Yeah, it's giving you delivered it in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so, I just don't. One thing I don't agree with as a photographer is like, everybody does things differently. I've said this a million times on the pod. Not everything is one size fits all. Like, I have a way of doing things. You have a way of doing things. Somebody else has a way of doing things. Like, some people might be more successful doing things their way, but it doesn't make it right for everybody else to have to do things that way.
Yeah.
And like delivering a gallery within 2 weeks would be the wrong way.
Yeah.
For me.
Agreed.
Personally.
And it's not just like, well, we need to do things like eat, see our loved ones, things like that.
Sleep.
But yeah, work, have other weddings, have engagement sessions, have consultations, like all of these different things, have planning meetings. So put the work aside. But with these galleries, I will call a gallery. I put it into Lightroom.
Yeah.
I then section it off into like, okay, here are the couples photos. Here's the dinner. Here's the whatever. I do that. I let it breathe. Like I probably do sneak peeks really quickly because I just need to see how they look. But after that, I let it breathe. And then I will edit each section individually. And then I will come back to it after a day because I want to see like, was I having a stroke while I edited this? Does it still look good to me?
Do I need to tweak anything? Yeah. Were my eyes tired?
Yeah.
Like what can I make better?
Agreed. What subject masks what like masks can be added? What retouching in terms of like removing signs and like all this different stuff. There's so much that goes into these wedding galleries. And I'm sorry, but if I pull up your Instagram feed and it looks like work from 2013 or looks like you just started and you're out here telling luxury photographers who are making 20 grand a wedding and working their literal asses off.
Yeah.
And you're telling them like, what's wrong with you? You're not getting these out quick enough. I'm kind of like,
what?
The problem is coming from inside the house, or the call is coming from inside
the call is coming from inside the house.
Yeah, like this is a you problem.
That is so funny. I love that.
And I do agree with you. Like if you are a wedding vendor or let's say a wedding photographer and you're coming for the throats of other wedding photographers.
Why?
But also you better be real confident in your decision. Like you calling out bad behavior is one thing, but calling out just someone's process.
Yep.
I gotta be honest, there are things I hear about other photographers with how they handle a wedding day in terms of like, posing and whatever and their overall attitude. And I might go like, that's not my vibe or that's not my style. But I would never go on socials and be like,
ever.
I heard that some photographers ask their couples to laugh. I don't love it, but do you, boo-boo, if that's what works for you and your couples are okay with that?
Never would I ever go out of my way to do that because A, that looks so bad on you just as a person in the community. Like, no, please, no. But B, like, I just don't want anybody to feel like I am judging them.
Yeah.
I don't want to feel judged.
Yeah.
Fuck out of here with that. We don't like that. Anyway, So thank you at Sarah Mariah Bridal for the threads.
Agreed. So reminder, we are covering what some people think, and I think this was a compilation of like wedding vendors and just regulars, civilians who see normies who see some of these as red flags. So this one was kind of funny to me. A Gmail address. This was just, these are in no order of significance, by the way. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have a Gmail address. If I'm responding to you, what do you care? Who the fuck cares?
What do you care? Yeah.
You do care. Because when you saw my Gmail address, you literally go, we need to get rid of that ASAP.
I think that's just because we're close.
You literally
I
go,
did the same. Once
you need to get rid of that.
Once you changed your profile picture to something too, and I was like, you need to go change that.
Which was the right call.
Fair.
I will give you that.
Here's my thing. Is it my favorite? No, but like you said, if I'm responding to you, leave me alone.
You literally.
Now, what I will say, your Gmail is your business name at Gmail.
For sure.
If it's like, you know,
Ratty Tatty 123
yeah, 69
City Slicker like, 69 at
you should
gmail.com.
Probably change that. But like if it's your fucking business name and you are a professional,
yeah, and you're responding, then get on it.
It is what it is. And you know what changed my mind on that? I was listening to another podcast, one of the top podcasts in the entire country. They make millions of dollars, and their email address is a Gmail email address to get submissions. And I was like,
is it Dax Shepard?
No, it was the Toast.
Oh.
But
Boo.
I haven't listened to the Toast since we last talked about it. So anyways.
Okay. Vendors who speak poorly of other vendors. We just got on that. We literally just covered that.
Yeah. And here's what I'll say though. There's a difference between like Nick Nack and I over here.
Venting
like
to a
we'll
friend
have a
in
personal
private.
conversation. Yeah. But if you are going not only on socials, I was just talking to someone about this, on consultations.
Okay, but how about let's one up it to other vendors?
Yeah, because if you are talking shit about someone to me, especially randomly, if we are not that close and you start running your mouth about someone, I'm immediately like, oh,
red flag.
I'm not telling you nothing
Red
because
flag.
I do not trust you. But during consultations, I was just talking to someone about this and I said, look, there's a way to communicate your value without essentially saying this other photographer is an idiot or whatever the case may be. I think it's important that you speak your value on a call. That's why you're on the call. You're essentially being interviewed. And I think that as someone who has interviewed hundreds of people in corporate America, if you walk into the interview and you're like, and you don't want to talk about any of your accomplishments or like what you bring to the table, how the fuck am I supposed to know, buddy? So you do need to talk about that, but that's a big piece of our job is learning how to speak to people, mainly strangers, when you're having these consultations. Communicate your value, be personable, and know what the fuck you're talking about. I had a consultation the other day and I slightly cried after in a good way because the planners literally said, like on the call, they were like, we talked to a lot of photographers. Like this is, and she was like, this was so well communicated, what you bring to the table, what you find is important, like to yourself, what you see is important as a photographer. And I will say that that is a strength I have. I have many weaknesses in this career, but a strength that I have is talking to people. So work on that. If you're out there and you're a wedding vendor and you're struggling, you're getting consultations, but you're struggling to book people, I would take a look at what do those conversations look like. Sorry, I took that in a different direction. Anyways. Not having a website.
I agree with that.
Yeah. It's got to be something.
Something.
Even a landing page that has like some your
information.
Work.
Yeah.
Yeah. But no website.
What about
a little sketch?
And I don't see this on here, but something that I've heard vendors talk about lately a lot, not listing their pricing on the website.
That's on here. And it is so true.
Where?
It's like halfway down.
Okay, absolutely no pricing on website, even starting or average. I think that you need to have a website, like you said, even if it's just a landing page, and somewhere on there you need to let people know at least what your starting or average price is, because at the end of the day, I will scour. If I'm looking for a service for myself, I will look everywhere, regardless of whether it's photography or not, anything, makeup artist. Like, I want to see your pricing. I don't want to have to go through the whole process of then filling out your entire, like, form
Yeah.
to just get the pricing back and be like, oh,
Way out of budget.
no.
Yeah. And I think for those people, I've listened to photography educators talk about this before, that like, nothing's out of budget. You just need to be able to communicate your value. Fucking get out of here with that. That's so dumb, because I'm sorry, but when I went car shopping, and I'm sure I've said this before, I didn't just go into Jaguar and be like, oh, well, communicate the value of a $200,000 vehicle for me and maybe I'll buy it.
Tell me why this G-Wagon is worth it and I'll put it on the car.
Nope. I looked at it and I went, well, Ford Focus, I could probably do better than that. Jeep Grand Cherokee that was pushing like 80 to 90 with the specs that I wanted. And I was like, like, sure.
A Jeep Grand Cherokee was pushing 80 to 90?
Yeah.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah. And it was the time where you couldn't get a car. Nothing
Ew.
was on the lot.
That sounds so dumb.
Insane. So we landed on
45 at best for a Jeep.
We paid 45 for our Subaru.
But for a
Actually,
Jeep?
47. So we landed on the Subaru. But again, it's one of those things where you go, you got to know, at least I think on my website it says starting at, for a full day wedding coverage. I'm not going to go, oh, well, starting at $2,500 and that's for like a 2-hour elopement.
People do that.
Yeah. And I think that's shitty, because
so
then you
too.
have people coming to you for full wedding coverage and they're going, now granted,
You're duping them.
you are duping them. Or give couples on average spend, or at least on your contact form. I see that a lot of luxury photographers I've seen. And by the way, everybody, like not everybody's a luxury wedding photographer. Everybody's putting that out there right now. I think even I at times have been like, you're not a luxury photographer. You're good at what you do, but like you're not out here shooting $400,000 weddings or $1 million weddings. But anyways, luxury wedding photographers will put on their contact form, like, what is your budget? And then in the space, it'll say like
the placeholder.
The placeholder will say, couples on average spend 15 to 20 grand on photography services or prices start at whatever. It's important, it's important to give people a little bit of an idea.
Yeah. Otherwise, it just feels like a waste of time. And then that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't want to have to go through this whole process to try to
pull information
from you that I feel you should have already just given to me.
Yeah.
Like, that's
and I literally feel like that's on this list as well, because I agree with you. If you have to email a vendor multiple times and ask very direct questions, trying to get an answer where it's like, I kind of feel like you should
just lay it out there clearly for me.
Yeah.
What a waste of my time and yours.
And yours. That's the other thing is people, hot take, because I disagree with people on this. Some wedding vendors will post constantly on their stories about like, just got ghosted, or can we please stop ghosting vendors?
That's the next one, right?
Is it?
Talking shit on social.
Oh, it's one of them. To me, that's different. But like the whole vendors being so mad about getting ghosted, I don't care.
The only time that I care about getting ghosted is when it's another photographer who is asking me for all of my branding information.
That's
because
fair.
They want a branding session, and then I send you every ounce of information that I send to all of my other branding clients, and you completely ghost me, and then you pop up a week later posting on your socials that you are now offering branding sessions
with probably the same exact information you sent them.
That
I wonder if people think they're slick Rick.
You're not slick. I've had people DM me and be like, what's your, and this is my job. I want to share this. I want to do branding photos for you. I love it. It is a passion of mine. It is something that I truly have really loved. But at the end of the day, like, people are going to do what they're going to do.
Yeah.
But are they going to be able to completely emulate the work that I would provide to others?
Correct.
100% no. So like, do I take it with a grain of salt? Do I think, imitation is the greatest form of flattery? I also don't think that. I think you're a fucking freak if you're doing that. But we all start somewhere. And at the end of the day, it is what it is.
Yeah.
But it is frustrating when I have that happen to me.
When it's another vendor.
Vendor who I know, and not just any vendor, a photographer specifically.
Like they know.
Who is taking something that I worked really hard on and built and put a lot of thought into. And, it makes me say, if you are a photographer looking for branding info, let's hop on a call first.
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
I think that's a great
Here's
idea.
my pricing. Let's hop on a call.
Yep, pricing starts at here. Would you like to hop on a call to discuss more? And then essentially just have a fucking PDF that you go
Wow, I
through.
just changed my whole thing.
There you go.
So if you think you're gonna get me, you're not.
You're not. Yeah, no, the ghosting thing with clients, I'm like, okay,
Yeah, with
thank you
clients,
for,
I'm like, bye.
especially if we've had a consultation and they ghost me, then I'm kind of irked. Because I'm like, no, you met me. You know me.
Yeah.
And now you're just going to ghost me? Man, you must really not like me. That hurts my soul. But otherwise, I know this sounds silly, but if you're not going to get back to me, cool.
That's okay.
Archive the file.
Yep.
And now it's one less thing that I have to go double check on a weekly basis.
Yep.
Totally fine. But I will say some people are really opposed to doing follow-ups. I will follow up. I do
too.
It's an email template. After a week or two, I'm like, hey, just checking in. But I also set boundaries and say, if I do not hear from you within 1 week, I will be archiving your file. You are more than welcome to reach back out. Pricing may be different. Like, you're not going to get the same pricing that you originally did. And this pricing changes all the time. Yeah. Anywho.
But going kind of off the ghosting thing, talking shit on socials about clients.
Yeah. No bueno. And I know I told you this already. That lady who posted that she hopes her bride gets hit by a bus. I was like, how could you possibly think anyone will ever refer you? And at the end of the day, whether you like it or not, if you would like to be if you would like to start taking higher end weddings, all that good stuff, you need to start building client or vendor relationships. It is not just about clients finding you randomly. You need to be able to build vendor relationships and relationships with planners. And I gotta be honest, I don't think any planner would look at, you talking shit about your clients and be like, they seem like they'd be a really good fit for my client.
Yeah, honestly, I can't personally imagine ever doing that.
And I got some shit to say,
I was
going to
say, I am somebody who doesn't really hold back, or like, I have shit to say, but I'm not going. I think we said this in a previous episode. Get a journal, write it in your diary, burn it after, send a text to yourself, get it together. No comment. Like, that's it. There's nothing beyond that. That's ridiculous.
Agreed. Lack of payment, processing, contracts, or just like official processing of all things. To me, that sounds like a Honeybook or Dubsado, like something official for clients to use. And I do get how that would be a red flag, especially if there's just no contract. That's scary.
That's scary and crazy.
That's scary.
Even when working with other vendors, like second shooter contracts and stuff, like I want that. Even if I'm the second shooter, I want that for me.
100%.
Like,
contracts are not just there to protect one party. It is to
they're there
protect
for
both. So it's like, for me, I send second shooter contract. For any associate weddings, not only do I send an overall 2025, the year of associate, here's the whole kit and caboodle of expectations that I have for you and expectations I want you to have of me, but also then, bless you,
thanks.
The associate, like, specific to that wedding. Here's the date. Here's the, location, all of this. Here's the pay schedule.
All the details, yeah.
It is important to have that. But I actually saw this. I was at a coffee shop, and this was 2 years ago, but I saw a photographer having a consultation with a couple. And in person, they were going through their investment guide, which I totally can appreciate. And then the couple was like, yeah, I think we're ready to move forward. And a contract was slid across the table for them to sign. Even that makes me nervous.
Really?
I want it online. Like, I want a copy of it in that moment. I want time to be able to read it. So the couple literally had to just sign
Well, they should have read it. Like, that's a common sense thing of saying, hey, can we take this home?
Yeah, that's
look
fair.
it over and send it back to you, and then you can Xerox a copy of it.
Fair.
But
it just made me, I was like listening and I was like, girl, you got to get Honeybook. I was like, I got a referral code for your Dubsado, whatever one you want to go for. But I do agree that it's important to have just a spot where you can do communication, you can kind of house your documents. I know of photographers who don't even use like PickTime or
are they using like Dropbox or Google Photos?
Yeah, they use like Google Photos or Dropbox to give photos. And I don't know, it just all feels, and again, there's not always one way to do things, but it does feel archaic to me, where I go, it just doesn't feel very professional.
I think if somebody has been doing it for a long time and that's how they've always done it and it works for them
Yeah.
and they found a system, their client doesn't know otherwise.
That's very true.
So their client is trusting what the vendor is saying. And if it is something that has worked for the vendor for ages and it is something that just flows and it's what they're used
That's
to,
fair.
then cool. If you're getting your photos, awesome.
Yeah.
But to us, because that's not how we've ever done it, it would be crazy. Now, if some new thing comes out and we're still using Pixie Set or PickTime,
True.
those, Gen Zers might look at us and be like, these fucking old
These
wenches.
losers.
Literally. So it's
That's
just all
true.
about how the times change and how we change with them.
That's true. But in a nutshell, y'all ensure you have a contract.
Yeah.
Vendor to vendor, vendor to client, doesn't matter.
Which leads us to the next one, vendors who won't answer any questions until you sign a contract. What is this?
Yeah. I've never run into that situation. I've
neither.
never even thought about
Me
it.
neither.
But I guess there are some people out there who will not answer a question. Now,
What does that even mean?
here's what I'll say. I could see this from the perspective of the vendor. Like, let's say it's a planner and this couple starts asking all these planning questions and logistical questions. It's like, hey, I'm more than happy to take care of all of that.
Okay.
We got to sign a contract. Like, this
Yeah,
is part of the
right,
job.
right.
But if you're asking a photographer, like, hey, can you just
Clarify.
like how will our photographs be delivered and how do you go about setting up an engagement session?
No can do.
Yeah, nope. Sign the contract, first.
Like,
Red
that's
flag.
crazy.
Red flag.
That's like, yeah. No.
No.
That's honestly unheard of for me.
You know what?
Because I'm like,
I would ghost that vendor.
no, 100%. I'm not hearing, you're telling me I can't answer any of these questions until you sign a contract? What? On what planet?
Yeah.
No. Fuck out of here.
Okay, we talked about pricing. Well, this one also with pricing, so incredibly cheap. If it seems too good to be true, it probably is.
The thing on that is I think transparency and honesty is going to be a huge thing. I think like if you are a very new photographer and you don't have your skills as honed in, your editing is not where you want it to be, but you're honest about it and therefore you are charging less because you want to gain more experience and you want to build a portfolio, fine. If you are somebody who is advertising yourself as a luxury photographer and doing X, Y, and Z, but you've only shot 10 weddings in South Minneapolis, not fine because you're duping a couple into thinking that they're getting something that they're not.
Yeah.
And that's not okay.
Yeah. And believe it or not, the whole luxury photographer thing, it doesn't just like have to do with the end product. It has to do with the entire experience you give that client.
Yeah.
So if you are newer and you're like you don't have guides set up, you don't have like check-ins appropriate time, like I don't know, there's just so much more that goes into a great experience than delivering some nice photographs.
Yep.
I think that that's important, but also like you said, if you are going to be charging, if you look at your market and say, okay, personally, and I could be very wrong, but I feel like average in the Twin Cities for a wedding photographer, like let's say 8-hour. Nikki's clearly still
Sorry,
getting
guys.
over something. You're good.
Yeah,
As long as you don't throw it, babe, we're all good. But if you look at the Twin Cities, I'd say like around $5,000 for a wedding photographer. Like you have some that are less, you have some that are higher, but I feel like 5,000
average.
is an average. So if you know that, and as a photographer, you are charging $2,500 because you are newer and you're trying to get these bookings, I feel you got to say something to these couples.
Yep.
You have to let them know you are newer. Otherwise, they are going to have the expectations of you that a $5,000 or $8,000 photographer is going to. And we're speaking from experience.
Yep.
The lowest I ever charged, the expectations of me and the crazy stories that I have are so much more than couples who are paying $5,000, $8,000, $10,000 for their wedding package. Now, it's also because maybe the expectations aren't higher, but I am better, so they don't feel like they're as high.
No.
I am better at my job. So you got to communicate. And most of the time couples are okay with that. If they're like, "Hey, I love your work. I know that you're newer, but your price matches what we can afford right now.
Let's work together.
Let's work together." Yeah.
No portfolios, no full wedding galleries. What do you mean?
Like no full wedding galleries to provide. I think this is just as a wedding photographer, if you ask for a full wedding gallery and they don't have anything to show you.
Well, that just goes back to our last point. If you're a newer photographer and you're just starting out and you only have styled shoots to show for your work, tell people that,
Yeah.
clarify that, make sure they know, and make sure your price reflects it.
Not only that, I beg of you, if you have only shot styled shoots, please don't book a wedding. Even if a couple wants you to.
Right.
I mean that, but
100%.
please don't do it. It is
Don't do
so
it.
much
It's not the same.
different. It's not the same. You need to second shoot a good amount of
At
times.
least one full season.
Yeah.
Every weekend, second shooting or photo assisting every
Yeah.
weekend.
Because every photographer is going to do things differently. You need to figure out what you like, what you don't like, what could go wrong. You could second shoot on one wedding day that went flawless. Your wedding days aren't going to do that. They're all going to be different. Crazy comes, from all different places. So even if your couples are like, oh, I love your work, I'd love to book you, but you've never even second shot before, I know it's hard to swallow your pride and say like,
turn down
no,
money.
but I wouldn't do it for your own sanity and for problems that very likely could happen with the couple down the road.
Yeah,
and
you
them
don't
being
know.
pissed.
Yeah. And I think going off of that too, as somebody, one of my very first experiences of shadowing, I just want to say, I'll tell this story very quickly. It was my very first experience. And I was on one of those Facebook groups and somebody was like, need a second shooter, blah, blah, blah. And so I was like, hey, I haven't second shot before. I laid it out there. I have not really done this before, but I'm really looking to get into weddings. I've shot families for X amount of time. Here's what I have for gear. This is where I'm located. I'm happy to show up. And if you don't want to, whatever, like whatever.
Yeah.
She was like, great, whatever. Hired me to be a second shooter, told me that she would pay me like a very low rate, obviously. I'm working. And then got back to me a week later and said, hey, actually, the couple took off second shooter from their package. Do you still want to come and shadow?
Liar.
First red flag. So I go and I'm like, sure, like I still want the experience. Like
Yeah.
I would love to learn from you, whatever. I get there. The first thing she does, hands me an SD card.
Yeah.
Or says, actually, do you want to just use yours?
Yeah.
And I can mail it back to you. And I said, okay.
Like, oh, I thought I was shadowing. And
So I was still under the impression that I'm shadowing. So I'm like kind of following her, like just kind of taking my own photos, I guess, as
Yeah.
a shadow. Like whatever. And then she sends me to do the groomsmen photos. And I said to her, I haven't done this before. Like, are you sure?
Yeah.
It'll be fine. Like it's not that much time, whatever. This is also in a venue that is seconds as like a ski resort type thing,
Gotcha.
whatever. So the guys are getting ready downstairs where like the lockers are,
Yeah.
where it's like fluorescent lights. It's really dark, but there's only like a few fluorescent lights. I'm very new at this.
This photographer did you dirty.
I'm doing my best. I'm trying to do my best at what I know.
Yeah.
Which is not a lot.
Yeah.
So we get upstairs and she's like, oh, like you don't have to stay the whole time, whatever. And I was like, that's fine. My dog has diarrhea. Like I'm going to go.
I gotta go. Yeah.
And I did leave and I gave her my card. She never mailed it back. But what I did get back was a whole text full of feedback that was like, the groomsmen photos, now I have to do this to them. Like, it just did not turn out well. Like, you should have brought them upstairs. You should have brought them to a window toward natural light, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. And I was like, okay, I really appreciate this. Like, I'm really sorry. I was doing the best that I could with what I had to work with and whatever. Overall, all in all, this is why you need to second shoot. This is why you need to shadow, not just once, like you just said, because you might have one experience where it's like, shit, you're thrown into the gauntlet, into the fire, and you don't really know what's going on. That cannot be your only experience of shooting a wedding before you take on your own wedding clients. You have to know more than that. And did this photographer kind of put me, like, I felt like I was put in a weird situation.
Oh,
and it was very
100%.
uncomfortable. And did I learn from it and grow from it? Yes. Did I work with that person again? No. And
Yeah.
that's okay. I don't think she's a bad photographer.
Yeah.
I don't think she's a bad person. I think I do think she's just not somebody who should mentor others or throw people into things and then, make me second shoot for you unpaid and then
provide feedback.
yeah. It was an interesting
And not a
experience.
that doesn't sound like feedback because she wants you to learn. That sounded like feedback of like, well, now I have to do XYZ.
I think she was trying to be nice. I don't know. I'm trying to give people the benefit of the doubt out
That's
here,
very
but
nice of you.
it was an
Because-
interesting experience.
Because as your friend, and this has happened before we ever even knew each other, I'm like, I'm not happy.
Yeah.
That's so frustrating. And when you're getting into photography, this job is already nerve-wracking.
Yep.
Like you don't know what's going on. You're trying your best. Every day you're failing, but you're
struggling.
learning from that
Yep.
failure. But to have someone else put you in a position to fail is really hard. When you are around people, you want to be around people who are lifting you up. That's not to say they're like giving you every answer that you're looking for, but they're giving
For
you
sure.
opportunities to grow and develop, and they're guiding you.
It's interesting.
Where did we even start? Oh, no. One other last thing I want to say about the portfolio. Here's what I did when I first started is I didn't have a full wedding gallery. What I did is I took my favorite images that I had taken from all these weddings that I second shot and engagement sessions, and I put them in one portfolio gallery because I wanted to show a like overview of like, here's how I shoot. Here's how I edit to show consistency. And then I would let my couples know that were inquiring before my very first year as a wedding photographer, like on my own. I would say, hey, here's what I have for work. And I would explain why.
Right.
And so showing that, hey, this is why I'm cheaper, but here's what you can expect out of me that's all you can do at the end of the day. And it does take time. Sometimes people get into this and they go like, well, why am I not booking weddings? I'm like, baby girl, it takes time. Not only time on your craft, but time to build the confidence and the, I don't know, kind of reputation a little bit. Some people may not like me personally, and that's okay, but they know I'm good at my fucking job.
Yep.
So, but that takes years. Okay. Anyways. Oh, no insurance.
I'm insured and everyone should be insured.
Yeah.
Insure yourself. Ensure you're insured.
And some venues, and people can be like, oh, who's going to know if I'm insured or not? It will eventually come up. A venue will want your insurance information eventually. And I'll give you an example. If Uncle Bob trips over your camera bag or something like that, and Uncle Bob comes for the venue is coming for you. And if you don't have insurance, that means you personally are going to be essentially sued for this money of Uncle Bob's medical bills and all that stuff. So it is important that you have insurance. Insurance not only covers your gear, which yes is important. If my office burns down, I'd really love for my gear to be covered. But second, on wedding days, even more so, even more expensive will be if something happens, like liability insurance. If something happens, you need to be covered. Otherwise, you're fucked.
Yeah, agreed. Insane contract clauses. Did you have more to add to that?
No, I'm laughing at this one. Sorry.
Insane contract clauses like the client is prohibited from reviewing the business without the express permission of the business.
That's insane.
I mean, shit.
Would we love it? Sure.
But is it insane? Yes.
It's nuts. I couldn't imagine. You would have to write that into a contract. I can't imagine a lawyer like built contract would just automatically include that. Now, here's what I'll say. If you're going to write a nasty review and you're just being a twat, like your wedding vendor really didn't do anything wrong.
You're just a bad person anyway.
Yeah. And sure, we'll fight you. We'll fight with Google to get that taken down. But like, if you had a bad experience with someone and you write a review about it and it's like, hey, you didn't do anything wrong. The vendor just sucks. And the fact that you could have a vendor who could come for you legally to say, well, in your contract, you did not get my permission before you wrote a review. Then what
So
are
you have
reviews?
to take it down. Yeah,
what are
then
reviews?
what's the point? But also, that's something that you can spread awareness about. If you have to take that review down, write it on your own personal page, blast it on Twitter. That's
Yeah.
not necessarily a review. You're just sharing your own personal experience. And you can fight that by saying, well, I'm not leaving a review on your page. I'm not leaving a review on your Facebook or your Google page, but I am going to write about my experience
Oh,
from
yeah.
my page and from my perspective and share that you are a see you next Tuesday
Yeah.
for saying that and letting people know, hey, by the way, this vendor that you're about to sign your contract with has a clause in their contract that says that you cannot write a review
Yeah.
on them, no matter what your experience is, unless you have their permission.
And I got to be honest, if you have a vendor that has that in their contract, I'm willing to bet they've had more bad experiences than good. And that's why that's in there, because they are trying to avoid additional bad press, which is a red flag I would run. And speaking of bad press, just since we're here, I have something to say. So Canon, I'm so mad and I'm going to talk about it. So I purchased a $4,300 camera, the Canon R5 Mark II. So excited. I didn't need it, but I wanted it. I just wanted it. I wanted the higher megapixels. I wanted an upgraded camera. So what do? I go on Amazon.com. Click, click, click. You know, I look up the camera. I go to the page and it is literally the description of the camera, Canon R5 Mark II, and right underneath it, it says, visit the Canon store. So I'm like, great, this is through Canon, like, wonderful. Buy the camera. After taxes and fees, it comes up just shy of, I think, like $5,000. Great. I've had this camera for 3 months. Randomly,
Sorry.
you're good. Randomly, motherfucker dies. Okay, guess what? That happens with technology.
Yep.
It is what it is.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, it is what it is. I'm frustrated, but go on Canon.com, type in my serial number to get a repair processed for this camera. And I get an error message that says, essentially, this serial number was not intended for sale in the United States. This cannot be registered. This cannot be, like, there's no warranty on this camera. And I'm thinking,
Camera literally just doesn't exist.
the camera doesn't exist. So I'm like, okay, clearly I've typed this in incorrectly. I did it maybe 18 times because I'm thinking, I must be missing a number here. No. I even then go to the metadata in Lightroom for the photographs that the camera's taken because it has this serial number built into the metadata. So I go copy paste it because I'm like, clearly I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
Nope. Same thing. This was not intended for sale in the United States. No warranty is eligible. Like, we will not even register this camera. So I just go, okay. So I go back to Amazon to essentially say, hey, you need to take this camera back. And Amazon goes, well, this was sent to you by a third-party seller. No, we're not responsible for this. You need to talk to the seller. And I go, how is it sold by a third-party seller when it's Amazon.com, Canon store? That makes no sense to me. So then I go to the seller and the seller goes, you're past your return window. You can't give this back. And I was like, well, funny, because I don't want to give it back. I just want this fucking camera fixed.
Yeah.
I spent almost $5,000. I'm being told that this camera should have never been sold to me in the United States and that I'm just SOL and this has now become a paperweight. And I straight up went to Canon Instagram and I had a little copy paste message about the situation. I went on each one of their pictures, copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. Like, I'm going to get your attention if it's the last thing I do, because if I tag you in stories, I get a response back that says, like, you cannot tag them, all this stuff. So
Canon USA does not allow to be tagged.
Exactly. I feel like I know what you're going to say, and I agree with you wholeheartedly.
It's literally like the review thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm like, or it's a picture of a freaking fox in the tundra. Like, that's all you're posting. Cool.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, so I'm going to get your attention. No one's reached out to me, nothing. And I'm quite pissed off about this. How can you be selling camera equipment to someone in Minnesota, which is in the United States, unfortunately right now, but it is. So I want a camera that I can warranty and register in the United States. So I'm working with Amazon on it. I'm fighting them. I'm literally throwing around trigger words like illegal because I'm so irate. But for these companies who make millions and billions of dollars, and I'm a small business owner trying to give you my money for a product that works and that I'm allowed to have allegedly, it's a little frustrating. So I don't think Canon has a reviews section on Google, but that is my review.
It's in their contract that you need express permission from Canon to leave a review.
No, legitimately. So I thought, since I have this platform that I was going to take to it. What I will not do is I will not talk shit about my clients or situations that I may have been in the past couple years.
But Cannon, she's
But
coming for your
Canon,
throat.
Canon's different. Anyways, other than that, any other red flags that you think that weren't on this list?
God, no, I'd have to think about it. I'm honestly such a chill, dumb bitch
Yeah.
that I need to take a minute to think about a red flag.
Yeah, that's fair. Maybe next episode we'll do like red flags as a vendor
Okay.
when talking to clients.
Cool.
Cool. Okay, y'all. Thanks for sharing your hump day with us. Don't forget to subscribe and review the pod wherever you listen. New full episodes drop every Friday, and then these little hump day mini episodes drop on Wednesdays.
Make sure you follow along with us on Instagram at cocktailhour.podcast and submit all of your stories there. The link is in the bio and everything is anonymous.
And we will see you on Friday.
Bye.
Bye.